אנחנו מוצאים את הספור עם זרה שמשון?
האם זה באמת סגולה בדוקה? הסגולה ללמוד בזה? מה? כן.
Erev Tov, good evening. Dobro v'yetzra to everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening. We're learning the Zera Shimshon on Parshas Bechukosi. We're doing section 1, Os Aleph, or Drush Aleph. Before we do, let's go ahead and read the first pasuk in our Parsha in Bechukosi. Im Bechukosi telechu, if in my statutes you walk, ve'es mitzvosai tishmeru, and my commandments you observe or you guard, va'asisem osam, and you do them. So the psukim go on to talk about all of the brachos, the blessings that will result from walking in the ways of Hashem's statutes and observing his mitzvos. So the Zera Shimshon starts, as he often does, with the excerpt from the Medrash Rabbah. Medrash. Al pasuk im bechukosai telechu. The Medrash Rabbah states on the pasuk of im bechukosai telechu, the pasuk we just read. Hadohu dichsiv. This is similar to a pasuk that's written, a pasuk from Tehillim. Hashafti durachai va'ashivo raglai el edosecha. I considered my ways and I returned my feet to your testimonies. Omar David. So the Medrash Rabbah says this is what David was in that pasuk. This is what David was saying. Ribbono shel olam, master of the world. B'chol yom hayisi mechashe ve'omer. Every day I think to myself and I say, L'makom ploni u'leves dira plonis ani holech. I'm going to go to such and such a place and to such and such a residence. I have plans to go to certain places. V'hoyu raglai mevios osi, and my feet bring me levote kinesios ulevote midrashos, to synagogues and to study halls. Hadohu dichsiv, and this is what is intended specifically by the end of that pasuk in Tehillim, ve'ashiva raglai el edosecha, and my feet return me to your testimony. So the idea apparently is in this pasuk that David HaMelech gets up in the morning and he makes certain plans. But then his feet, so to speak, have a mind of their own, and they bring him to shuls for davening and to study halls for learning Torah, and that's how he ends up spending his time because that's where they bring him, disregarding his original plans. As we'll see, it's not so simple, but that seems to be the idea, and it connects to im bechukosai telechu, if you walk in Hashem's statutes. And this is what David HaMelech is saying, how he walks to his feet bring him and convey him, and he walks to the synagogues and to the study halls. So now let's continue in the second paragraph. V'hikshe shom hayefei toar. On this piece in the Medrash Rabbah, the Yefei Toar, a commentary, asks, and we're going to see three questions here in the Yefei Toar. V'chi b'shi Gaon yinhag. And does David Melech conduct himself with craziness or with lunacy? He is intending to go, or lemakom acher, sorry, he's intending to go to a different place. And his feet bring him against his will to the study halls. So the Yefei Toar says, if a person tells you that he's intending to go to, let's say, to visit his neighbor, and suddenly he wakes up, so to speak, and he's in the shul or the base medrash, you would say there's a problem here. There's either a physiological or a psychological problem if the person can't leave his home and go to the place where he's intending to go, and he keeps finding himself ending up in a different location that he did not intend to go to, then something's problematic. So the Yefei Toar says it seems like David HaMelech is confessing to some kind of problem. Ve'od kasha, and there's another question. Why, when David HaMelech first got up, did he himself not plan to go to a shul or to a study hall? Right? What is David? Again, it almost seems like a an admission of something really not quite right. David HaMelech gets up. What is he thinking he's going to do during the day? He's going to go to certain places and not go to the shul and not go to the base medrash. Why isn't he planning to go to the shuls and the study halls? Ve'od, in the third question, dipshat hakosav more lehefech. A simple reading of the pasuk in Tehillim teaches the opposite of what the Medrash Rabbah, of how the Medrash Rabbah seems to interpret the pasuk. Deve'ashiva raglai, because the words "and I will return my feet," or "and I returned my feet," mashma imply shehu hayameshiv haraglaim leveis hamedrash, that it was his intent to guide his feet to walk to the Beis HaMedrash. She'adarabba, because it seems, again, from the words in the pasuk, that it was the opposite. Haim shahayu rotzim. It was his feet that intended laleches lamokom acher, to go to a different place. And he, David HaMelech, made the conscious choice to say, no, I'm not going to go where perhaps my feet are telling me I should go, or kind of leading me. I'm going to make the choice, ve'ashiva raglai, and I'm going to return my feet to go to the basement, to the shuls, and to the study hall. So the three questions are presented from the Yefei Toar, and the Zera Shimshon in this piece is going to begin to answer the three questions. V'yesh lomar, and we can say, Tiberesh brachos, in the first parak of Meseches brachos, Amrinon, we say. So the Gemara says over there, quotes, first of all, the Gemara over there quotes another pasuk in Tehillim. LeDavid, a psalm of David. Shamra nafshi ki chosid ani. Guard my soul, because I am a pious person. So the Gemara continues an explanation of that pasuk. Lo chosid ani. Am I not a pious person? David HaMelech says to Hashem, am I not a pious person? Shekol malchei mizrach u'mariv v'chulei, because all of the kings of the east and the west, etc. So, once again, the Zera Shimshon assumes that we know this Gemara in the beginning of Masechta Brachos, and we have it on the tip of our fingertips, the tip of our tongues. So let's actually talk for a moment about what the Gemara over there says. The Gemara says that David says to Hashem, am I not a pious individual? Let's compare me to the other kings. The other kings of the world sleep late, and they get up late, and they go and they have big meals, and they get together in big social groups, and they enjoy life, and they have a good time. I, however, hours and hours before they're even thinking of getting out of bed, I get up at midnight, David HaMelech says, and I begin to praise you, and I begin to sing songs of praise to you, Hashem. And not only that, but I involve myself in all kinds of important work for the community. And the Gemara gives a specific example of how David involved himself in assisting husbands and wives to be able to be together, and all kinds of different avodas Hashem, service of Hashem. So David says, Hashem, don't I deserve special protection because of the dedication that I show, especially in comparison to the other kings who live much more, who live lives of luxury and lives of indulgence, whereas I am getting up in the middle of the night to daven, to learn, to praise you, Hashem, and to do avodas Hashem, to do mitzvos and chesed for other people. So that's what the Gemara says David was saying. V'hikshe ha'iyun Yaakov. The Ian Yaakov asks a question in this Gemara in Brachos. The eich efsher sheDavid yivakesh schar mitzvosav b'olam hazeh. How is it possible that David would request a reward for his mitzvos in this world? Sheyishmereu HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'shvil chasiduso. That Hashem should guard him because of his piety. And the understanding of this question is that for tzaddikim, certainly their total, and for regular people to the extent that we're able, But certainly for tzaddikim, their desire for schar, for reward, should be the real reward, which is olam haba, merit in olam haba. So the Iyun Yaakov is saying this Gemara in Brachos seems to be problematic because it depicts David HaMelech seemingly saying to Hashem, protect me in this world, reward me in this world because of my acts, my devotion, and my acts of mitzvos and chesed and avodas Hashem and service to Hashem. So the Iyun Yaakov says that's not what we expect David HaMelech to say. We would expect David HaMelech to say, Hashem, please reward me at the place where it really matters in Olam Haba. Please spiritually reward me for my dedication. So that's the question. V'tirates, and he answers, the Iyun Yaakov answers as follows. Lefi shederech hamelachim lefanek ula'adein es atzmon. It was the way of the kings of the world, the other kings, the other rulers, to indulge and to treat themselves kedei shelo yavo lidei choli mora shechora, in order that they not come to suffer from the dark, bitter sickness, which is a term referring to depression. Machmas daga v'tirdas hamalucha, because of the worries and the burdens of being kings, of the kingship, v'chule, etc. So the Iyun Yaakov says, in order to understand what's going on with David HaMelech and that Gemara in the beginning of Masechta Brachos, you need to know that he was not saying that the kings of the world, just in order to waste time and to be lazy and to just enjoy life, were getting up later and getting together for nice, enjoyable social events. No, what David HaMelech was saying was, many kings of the world are under tremendous stress, and they're under the tremendous burden and responsibilities of being kings, of being rulers. And in order not to become overwhelmed and not to become depressed or even have some kind of nervous breakdown, they would sleep a little late sometimes. They would sleep later. They would get together. They needed a healthy social life. They needed a healthy way of letting off steam, so to speak, of letting off some of this pressure so that they wouldn't become depressed. And once we know that, then the Iyun Yaakov continues, V'haya mispalel David, and therefore what David was davening was lekach, for this, sheyishmereu HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that Hashem should protect him. Av she'eno misnahe keshar hamalachim v'safnukim u'v'sa'anugim, that David HaMelech should deserve a special protection from Hashem, from not being overwhelmed by the burdens of his job and his responsibilities, and not becoming depressed about it and overwhelmed about it, even though he was not getting up, sleeping late, and he was not allowing himself to let off steam and go to social events and enjoy these different types of activities and entertainments that the other kings used in order to function and to be able to function and hold up under their heavy burdens. So that's the Iyun Yaakov adds an insight into what David HaMelech was saying. And now we need to step back and understand how that answered his question. His question was, how can David ask to be rewarded in this world if David wants to talk to Hashem and be mevakesh and request schar, request reward for his dedication and his mitzvos and his avodas Hashem? Shouldn't he talk about a reward in the next world? So the Iyun Yaakov says David is not asking for a reward. It's a very subtle point. He's not asking for a reward, for schar. What he's asking for is, he's saying to Hashem, since I don't do the things that other kings do to protect themselves from being overwhelmed, and the reason I don't take those kinds of precautions or take those kinds of necessary steps to guard myself from being overwhelmed by the job of being king, the reason I don't do it is because I get up at midnight to serve you, to daven to you, and I'm involved in community chesed, and I'm involved in doing things for other people, and therefore, Hashem, don't reward me, so to speak, but give me the protection I would get naturally, even though I'm not doing the things that other kings do to get that protection from being overwhelmed and from possibly succumbing to the overwhelming burdens of my responsibilities. So the Iyun Yaakov, so the Zera Shimshon wants to start off his explanation and answers to the three questions that he brought from the Yefei Toar, he wants to start by establishing this idea, this concept from the Iyun Yaakov based on the Gemara and Brachos about David HaMelech. But now we're going to see in the top of the second column that this whole approach presents a question. Omnam, however, mitzad acher yesh lomar. From another perspective, one might say, dekra ksiv, that one might say, meaning one might ask, wait a minute, don't we have a pasuk in Sefer Devarim? V'nishmartem me'od l'nafsho seichem, guard your souls exceedingly well. Don't we have a pasuk that teaches us that everyone needs to be very careful and take care of himself physically and emotionally and psychologically and protect his health and well-being in every way? V'hecha deshchiach hezeka. And in situations where damage is common, damage is usual, meaning in situations where a person can easily see and be aware of the fact that if he doesn't take certain precautions and protections, there could be damage, again, physical damage or emotional, psychological type damage. The person might suffer if he doesn't do certain things. Lo samchino nanisa. Then we do not rely in those situations on a miracle. The question that the Zera Shimshon is posing here is, how did David HaMelech justify, so to speak, passing on doing the kinds of things that other kings did to protect themselves from becoming depressed and overwhelmed? If that's the nature, if that's derech hateva, which we'll see soon is how the Zera Shimshon refers to it, if that's the derech hateva, that's the natural way, how kings and rulers need to act and need to do, then why did David HaMelech refrain, avoid doing those things, and then daven to Hashem and say, Hashem, look at my incredible dedication, now protect me? No. Zera Shimshon is saying David HaMelech perhaps should not have acted that way. David HaMelech should have followed the techniques and the methods and the thinking of the other kings in terms of doing things to make sure that his mental health and his psychological health was sound and that he wasn't overcome by his burdens. Why did he rely on just davening to Hashem? We're not supposed to rely on Hashem to protect us when we ourselves need to protect. When we need to protect ourselves. V'yesh lo la'adam, the Zera Shimshon continues, v'yesh lo la'adam li'yishamer atzmo. And a person needs to take care of himself. Shelo la'asos davar neged hateva. That he doesn't do something against nature. We have to always know what the right way is to act that's wholesome and healthy and not go against that. The hainu kemotzinimu pachim, and this is similar to what the Gemara says about extreme cold and extreme heat. The shomer nafsho yirchak mehem. Gemara quotes a pasuk in Mishlei. This Gemara, I believe, is a Gemara in Ksubas. The Gemara says that quotes the pasuk in Mishlei. A person who wants to protect himself has to distance himself from very extreme temperatures of extreme cold and extreme heat, because this can cause a person to become sick, to become weakened, to become unwell. So therefore, what was David HaMelech doing in this case by seemingly not taking care of himself and his well-being? Umishum hachi David HaMelech olav hashalom hayemechashev. And therefore, what was going on with David HaMelech was that he would consider v'omer lemakom ploni ani holech leveis dira. Really, what he was saying was, I'm going to go to such and such a place and such a residence in order to take care of myself and give myself a little break and have a little entertainment and have a little relaxation. When he got up in the morning, he wanted to go to places of refreshment and places of enjoyment to restore himself. He was working extremely hard as the king. He had overwhelming responsibilities. And so he would get up in the morning and he would say, I want to go to places to relax. That would be good for me. That would be in line with the pasuk of Nishmartem Ma'od Nafsho Seichem, taking precautions to guard oneself and protect one's health. In order not to come to a situation of depression, machmas hadagos vehatirdos, because of the worries and the concerns and the burdens, hamivios cholizeh, which could bring this illness, which can bring a person to a nervous breakdown or to depression, mitzad hateva, in a natural way. So Zera Shimshon says, when we read the Medrash Rabbah in the beginning, in the first paragraph, and it depicts David HaMelech as getting up in the morning and saying, I want to go to certain places, I think about going to have certain plans, and then I find myself going to the Beis Medrash and the shul. The places he wanted to go were places where he could relax a little bit and let off steam. And he's saying, I know that would be a good thing. I know that would be a healthy thing and a wholesome thing to do, and something I should do from a derech hateva perspective, from a natural health perspective. V'kavanoso hayasol latova, and his intent was a good intention, kedei lekayim hakasuv, in order to fulfill the pasuk that the Zera Shimshon brought from Devarim, v'nishmartem me'od lenafshosechem, and guard your souls very well. So here, let's reflect back on the three questions that the Yefei Toar set up, that the Zera Shimshon quoted in the second paragraph. One of those questions was, the second question actually specifically was, why didn't David get up and think about going to the Beis Medrash and the shul? Why does he say, I thought about going to other places? So the Zera Shimshon has just answered that question head on. David HaMelech got up in the morning and thought, I need to take care of my health. I'm overworked. I'm overburdened. I feel the stress. I feel the tension. I need to get up. I get up in the morning and I think I need to take it a little easy today. Let me sleep late. Let me go to the places where I can have a little relaxation, a little entertainment, a little social gathering and refreshment, and restore myself, restore my health, strengthen myself, and then I'll throw myself back into the work. So his machshava was a good one. His kavanah, as Zera Shimshon just said, but kavanoso hayasol latova. When he got up in the morning, his intention was to do a good thing, meaning to take care of himself and take care of his health. However, even with that kavanah, he ended up walking and found himself walking to the Beis Medrash and to the Batei Knesios and the Batei Midrashos, which we're still going to talk about. And after he had these initial thoughts, he then considered al ha-pasuk kol ha-machla. He thought about the pasuk, a pasuk in Shmos, where it says, all of the illnesses that I put on the Egypt in Mitzrayim, Lo osim alecha, I will not put on you. David HaMelech considered and thought about that pasuk. The kosher, he had a problem with that pasuk, a question on that pasuk. She'im hu shomea b'kol Hashem, if he listens to the voice of Hashem and he follows the will of Hashem, k'moshe maskil ha-pasuk, as that pasuk begins, im shemoa tishma, if you will certainly listen to the words of Hashem, is the beginning or the first few words of the pasuk, and it says, if you listen to Hashem, the voice of Hashem, then I will not put the illnesses of Egypt on you. So David HaMelech thought, wait a minute, how does that pasuk work? If I'm listening, if a person is listening to the voice of Hashem, how could anyone even think that he's going to be somehow punished and penalized, that God would put the diseases of Egypt and the illnesses and sicknesses on him? The itzterich lomar lo osim, that it would need to say, that you need a pasuk to tell you, I'm not going to put them on you. Of course, if a person is doing his best or her best to listen to the voice and words of Hashem, then God's not going to put an illness or sickness on them. So what is that pasuk teaching us? Elavadai, but definitely, this is what David HaMelech is reflecting, but definitely Sheba lomar, he comes to say, the pasuk comes to say, Sha'afilu, She'im hayu ru'uyim lavo, even if certain illnesses would be appropriate to come on an individual lefi hateva, according to nature, kimo hanidon zeh shel David, just like this situation with David, where because he ignored and avoided doing things to take care of the heavy level of stress and tension and burdens that were on him, he ignored the things that he should have done to relieve that stress or tension and get a break from it. HaKadosh Baruch Hu yarchike mimenu. Hashem will keep the illnesses from him. Ve'od. And that's what the pasuk in Shmos must be teaching us about, not putting on us the sicknesses of Egypt, that if you listen to Hashem and you don't do certain things, because you're so involved in your avodas Hashem, you don't do certain things that would protect you lefi hateva, according to the natural order, that Hashem will still take care of you and protect you from those negative consequences. Ve'od, and in addition to that, the HaTorah magna umatzla. Also, Chazal teach us that the study of Torah protects and saves a person. V'chola osek b'Torah yisurin b'deilin mimenu. Another Gemara from Masechta Brachos. And a person who involves himself in Torah study, sufferings will separate from him. So we see that Chazal teach in these two places the idea that Torah study can protect a person from certain kinds of illnesses and suffering. And therefore, now we're going back to David HaMelech's reasoning. Because of this reasoning that David HaMelech, these steps that he went through in his own thought processes, therefore I returned my feet to your testimonies. Because my feet were leading me in a natural way, in a legitimate good way, to a place of refreshment and joy and relaxation, which I needed. Hashafti oso ale dosecha. I return my feet to your testimonies, meaning to study your laws and to daven to the shuls and to the base medrash. So the Zera Shimshon has given us an explanation and a way of understanding the first piece in the Medrash Rabbah that he introduced us to in the first paragraph as to what was really happening with David HaMelech. And his thought process was to get up in the morning and go to places where he could benefit and receive some relaxation, which he desperately needed for his physical health and well-being. But even though that was his original thought, he reasoned out that he would continue to serve Hashem and study Torah and daven and praise Hashem instead of doing those things, because there would be protection that would come. And he asked for that protection in the pasuk in Tehillim that was quoted, Shomra nafshi ki chosid ani. He asked Hashem for special protection because of the dedication that he showed in place of, instead of handling things the way the other kings did and taking some relaxation and taking some time off. However, we know that one question that hasn't been answered is the issue of the feet, meaning that the Medrash Rabbah seem to say that David had certain intentions, and his feet brought him to the base medrash and to the shul, the batei knesset and the batei midrashos. And the third question in the Yefei Toar was that's a very beautiful idea, but it doesn't seem to fit into the words, because the words talk about David HaMelech saying, and I turned my feet, I brought my feet back from those other places and brought them to the shuls and the study halls. So we're continuing. The author of the piece in the Medrash Rabbah had a problem. Why did David talk about returning his feet? David should have said, seemingly, or I returned to your testimonies, not I returned my feet. Why did David talk about his feet? The Medrash Rabbah focused on the fact that David, seemingly without a clear reason, talked about returning his feet to go to the study halls and the synagogues. Why didn't David say, and I returned? I thought about going elsewhere to places of relaxation and enjoyment that I needed, and I didn't. Instead, I went to the shuls and the study halls. So he should have said that. V'shafti leidosecha, and I returned to those places. Ela shevadai. Definitely the pasuk in Tehillim is coming to hint to the fact we're now in the top of the second column on the next page. Shekishahaya, the top of the first column on the next page. Shekishahaya holech lilmod, when David went to learn hayamakir bateva shelo kolkach idun v'simcha, he realized that in his nature he felt so much a pleasure and joy when he started to walk towards the base medrash. It was as if he was walking towards one of these places of relaxation and of chulin, in a secular way. Lahashiv nafsho, to restore his soul. So David HaMelech, as he turns away from places to go where there's refreshments and relaxation and taking a little time off, and he walks towards the Beis Medrash and the shul, he's not dreading it. He's not saying, oh, I wish I could go to those other places, but I have a chiyuv, I have an obligation to go learn. No, he feels a tremendous joy and a tremendous pleasure, and he's refreshed when he starts walking towards the shul or the Beis Medrash. Sha'af. He feels the same refreshment as if he went to one of the places that he wanted to go in the beginning. Even when he's going towards the Beis Medrash, he's already feeling happy. He's already feeling rejoiced. The tension is falling away. And he says, my feet are bringing me besimcha leveis hamedrash. They're bringing me joyfully. I have a light step as I walk to the Beis Medrash. Kemoshe Pirish Rashi, as Rashi explains, al pasuk vayisa Yaakov Raglov, the pasuk where Yaakov lifted his feet, the Torah says, to walk towards Haran. He lifted his feet to go. And so Rashi says over there that he was besimcha, and his feet carried him in a sprightly way, in a joyous way. There was no burden to his walking. V'ayin od le'el b'Parshas Beshalach, and you can look previously on Parshas Beshalach, al hahid d'chala osik b'Torah yisurin b'delin mimenu. You'll see more of an explanation about this idea that when a person studies Torah, suffering removes itself from that individual. So the Zera Shimshon is saying the reason the Medrash Rabbah talked about David HaMelech's feet was because in the pasuk David HaMelech talked about his feet, and so the Zera Shimshon explains why is he bringing in his feet? What was remarkable or significant to David HaMelech to have to mention his feet? Because David HaMelech saw he was surprised in a way, pleasantly surprised in a way, that when he turned away from relaxation and enjoyment to walk towards the Beis Medrash to study Torah, to walk towards the shul to daven, he felt a burst of joy. He felt a feeling of refreshment and pleasure, and his feet took him with joy and simcha towards those destinations. And it was as if he was walking. He had the same feeling, perhaps even more so. He had, because he had the spiritual element, the spiritual joy as well of going towards the Beis Medrash and the Beit Knesset, as he would have felt had he gone to a place to relax and to again, legitimately and for health reasons, to be able to let off some of the burdens and relieve some of the stress and the tension. We'll go a little further. Uvederech ze yuvan medrash acher. Understanding everything that the Zera Shimshon just explained, will also help us understand a different statement in the Medrash Rabbah. Al pasuk zeh, on our same pasuk, im Bechukotai. So our pasuk said, im Bechukotai telechu, and then at the end of the pasuk it says, va'asisem osam, and you will make them, or you will do them. Omar Rabbi Chanina bar Papi said, Im shamartem es Torah, if you observe the Torah, hareini male aleichem keilu asisem atzmechem, I will consider it a merit to you as if you made yourselves, as if you made yourselves. Hard to know, a little bit cryptic to know exactly what that means, but basically the idea is that if you keep the laws of the Torah, then you're going to get credit as if you created yourself, or if you preserved yourself and helped yourself in a very significant way, as if you maintained your health. Vehiksha Yefei Toar Sham, and the Yefei Toar, our old friend from earlier in the piece, comes back and asks the question: the maschus huzeh. What merit is it to say that it's as if we helped ourselves? The bishlama, it would make sense ki'ilu oses chavera. If this new piece in the Medrash Rabbah said, when you keep the laws of the Torah, it's as if you protected and made your friend's life, you helped your friend. The Amrin and Beperek Chelek, as we say in the Gemara and Sanhedrin, Nicha, which we will see how good it would fit in with our Medrash Rabbah, Shamakayim Nefesh Achas Mi Yisrael, a person who saves one life from the Jewish people, Ke'ilu Kiyem Olam Mole. It's as if he fulfilled an entire world. It's as if he preserved an entire world. So that we would understand. If we're told that by keeping the Torah, we receive the merit of saving another person's life or helping another person, then that would be an amazing statement. Aval asiyas atzmo. But this idea that we get credit as if we had helped ourselves, nira delo shaykh boschar. It would appear that perhaps there's no reward for helping yourself. Ki hamehane la'atzmo, a person who brings the pleasure or joy to himself, lo yeshubach, is not generally praised. That's not something we find so praiseworthy for a person to say, oh boy, I really love a good pastrami sandwich, and then they go get the good pastrami sandwich. We don't usually say, what a mitzvah, what an amazing, beautiful chesed you've just done to give yourself the exact type of sandwich that you enjoy most. So the Yefei Tohar says, why is the Gemara saying what it says? Help other people. That's a beautiful thing to do. That's what you get schar for. But to be considered that you helped yourself might seem selfish, might not seem such a meritorious act. Ulefi darkenu osi shapir. But according to the approach, the Zera Shimshon says that we've developed, everything works out. Lefi shemisha poshea neged hateva. Because what we've established is that when a person is negligent against natural law, she'eno shomer briuso, he doesn't take care of his health. Harehu ke'ilu mischayev benafsho. It is as if he is harming himself. He is responsible for harming himself. An individual who doesn't take care of his health and doesn't take care of himself and doesn't do the things that nature ordains for his health, it's as if he's going to be held responsible for harming himself. V'chein amru zichronim levracha. And so Chazal said, al pasuk on the pasuk, v'heisir Hashem mimcha kol choli. The pasuk says Hashem will remove mimcha is the operative word here. He'll remove from you kol choli, all sickness. Mimcha yiyeh, it should be from you. Shelo yavo chaloim alayich. From you, you have to make efforts. Your efforts have to result in the fact that sicknesses don't come upon you. You need to take the appropriate steps to protect yourself. But if a person, such as David HaMelech, has an intention when he avoids certain types of things that could be good for his health, but his intention is lasok b'Torah lishma, to learn Torah truly for its own sake and to involve himself in the study of Torah, as David did when he walked to the Beis Medrash, oz Hashem yishmerehu v'chayehu, then Hashem will guard him and preserve his life. And then Hashem will say, I'm going to give you the merit of protecting yourself. There is merit that comes when a person takes care of his own health, because he has a mitzvah to do so. And that merit can be given to a person who devotes himself, who dedicates himself to the study of Torah Lishma and to Avodas Hashem. Because that person is able to say to Hashem, I might have cut corners, so to speak, or I might not have availed myself of certain things that would have given me a little more relaxation and let off some stress and tension, but instead I dedicated myself to Torah study and to Avodas Hashem, and to doing things for other people. And so Hashem rewards that person with a special level of protection. We're going to pause here. We certainly, the Zera Shimshon has taken the starting piece and the Medrash Rabbah and gone on a deep dive into understanding what was David HaMelech's original thought in the morning, what was his later thought during the day, how both different machshavos are important, and how in the end David HaMelech received special protection, asked for and received special protection for Hashem because of his intense sincere Torah study and Avodas Hashem and service of Hashem. Yasher koch to everyone for joining us this week in the Zera Shimshon, and God willing, we look forward to learning Zera Shimshon again together next week.